I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for InvestmentPitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Jay Moore, the Chief Collaboration Officer and CMO of Prasaga. Jay, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time to be here.
Excited to be here. Thank you for inviting us over.
You're very welcome. I'm really excited to dive into Prasaga. If we could just kick it off with an overview and the focus, high level of what is Prasaga and what are the problems that your team is solving for?
Yeah, I think the best thing is to look at just a little bit of backstory. We started with an IoT smart city interoperability solution, and that message server, we were fully confident that if we could build it outright, we could build a marketplace behind it and give people autonomy over their data so that they could decide what sensor data or what information they wanted to have monetized, and that could actually be the new way that we look at breaking down the walled gardens around different data silos that are out there. What we realized real rapidly after we'd gotten our first initial infusion of capital was that scaling of our technology wasn't the issue. It was the scaling on the blockchain. So we spent the last 3 years, we looked at all the projects that were out there thinking that somebody had to have the DNA for getting scaling right. And we weren't able to determine any other projects that were going to deliver us that level of throughput that we needed. So we put our heads to it, and that's actually what we've now come out to tell everybody about. We've got the patents filed. We've got the proof now of the core technology that we're bringing to market, that it does work and it does provide these solutions.
That's great, and that's the true entrepreneur's journey, looking at the problem and being like, hey, we're going to have to create this solution ourselves. And
yeah. This is my 12th new venture, so I've been here a few times, but this was by far the biggest. Oh yeah, let's figure out the unsolved problem and the challenge that's been facing a lot of other projects around the world. And our big breakthrough, the thing that really was the aha moment, and it goes back to some park technology that was built in the 80s. And it's a first-class object model applied to an operating system. And we took that operating system, just like what's in OS 10 or in the Windows tree, and we applied it to the blockchain. So we now have a full operating environment, not just moving smart contracts around. We've got a full operating environment running on top of the blockchain. And that's changed things at a meta level.
Definitely, and I was going to ask you about that in terms of now Prasaga is a full, layer 1 blockchain protocol. What makes it unique and different? And scalability is one thing. Obviously, it needs to be scalable, but there are a lot of other blockchains that are doing things that are scalable, but they're just not the right fit. So maybe you could dive into that, uniqueness.
And we did build our blockchain with innovative consensus. We've got a whole bunch of things that make us very, very efficient, and took advantage of a lot of the things we saw breakthrough in other protocols. The key, though, was to get away from smart contracts and move to what we call smart assets. And the way we're able to do that is because the operating system is running on the blockchain. Not only does all of our code run live and is fully inheritable, so as you're an application developer, as new classes get built, you have access directly to those. We actually store state in the account on the blockchain. And that allows us to have the scaling solution that we do, because unlike with the serialization that happens with smart contracts, we can now move your account from shard to shard in order to keep throughput, always keep accuracy, no double spend in our situation, but be able to get the full parallelization possible across multiple nodes. And that's the big sea change. Now, does it provide us ease of use? You can use any language to build on top of this blockchain. Yes. I mean, it gives you the developer now able to focus on the consumer problem, not on the blockchain problem, which that to me, it's kind of like when we were building our own data centers, the cloud really opened it up so that we could reduce the cost to market and get there a lot faster through cloud computing.
Definitely, and I like that you are focused on smart assets. And I see, the smart contract problem as, like in Ethereum, for example, they have the Ethereum virtual machine. You're using command lines to type into smart contracts. It seems like it's like the DOS compared to what you're saying is now a Windows operating system.
You know, that's the best illustration we've been able to come up with. And the same thing happened when DOS, you were dealing with one operation at a time. You could actually run one program at a time. Now we've got the ability to run multiple programs simultaneously across chains. The other thing was that obviously user interface improved dramatically. I was there. The thing that we're working on right now with how hard it is to build in Solidity and other development environments, we break through that, and you know, the tool set that we'll be able to bring to market, we're just now showcasing early versions of that over on Hyperledger. And we put this XBOM up on Hyperledger to prove that it actually has the functionality that we're stating it does. So, you know, anytime you're innovating, there's also, you know, the belief that you've solved it and then the proof that you've solved it. And that was what we really had to do before we felt like we could raise this next round to build the mainnet with, as we had to prove this technology does what we say it's going to do.
Definitely, Jay. And you mentioned that the developers can now focus on, you know, the end user and the customer part rather than just the blockchain part. And I want to talk about, you know, what's hot in terms of decentralized applications and functionality right now in the blockchain space, and that's the decentralized finance niche industry and data sovereignty as well. And I know you're working on that and you are in the early stages, but can you talk about what are the first steps in providing decentralized finance tools on Prasaga?
Yeah, I think that the key is building the fundamental marketplace. And I think one of the ways that we're doing that, and we're going to be showcasing what we're doing, is to build a platform for developers that allows them to license their technology as they're building it. Whether it's for DeFi or supply chain or any of those class trees will have a licensing architecture for royalties that allows people to participate in basically monetizing their R&D before they ever bring them to market. And I think that's really strategic in terms of not only getting developers on board to be building on our technology platform, because obviously there's lots of solutions out there that they need to be able to get to market with. But the other key is like for DeFi, you know, there's fundamentals where we're going to be easier to fractionalize. We're going to be easier to build the core components of the technology on us, just because you're dealing with moving assets rather than writing all these smart contracts to do it. So instead of having this large, very calcified or very rigid code base to work with, you're going to be able to work in something, and that was the key for us. Why we called it XBOM was extensible. It's an extensible blockchain object model where it allows you to continue to innovate and change, which I think everybody in software understands. Nothing is static. Everything is a living piece of code, and we're much more fundamentally built for that type of an environment.
Very interesting. And you mentioned that developers will be able to work in multiple programming languages, and that Solidity was one of those, you know, barriers to entry where you have to learn a whole new language just to start coding on Ethereum. And so that's obviously going to be an incentive for developers on Prosaga. Can you talk about any other incentives in terms of early on? How are you going to foster the development ecosystem and attract developers to start building on Prosaga?
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally the idea that we can start to help people monetize before they get to market is a principle that we want to look at. I mean, for us, it's how do we build that community? How do we build that ecosystem and infrastructure that creates the proof of concept and the product market fit, but also gives them the resources and ecosystem that they can put themselves around. So we've got a venture studio model that's going to align with a lot of blockchain incubator accelerators, and that's part of our DataGrid collaborative. And that whole environment for developers, I think, is going to not only inspire the innovators, but also the larger corporations that we're working with to be able to bring new solutions to market faster. And that's as we're working in everything from enterprise level supply chain work, clear through identity, insurance technology, all of the pieces that we're seeing that are going to be potentially available through our blockchain. One of the things that keeps coming back to us is the kind of problems that have been being solved with blockchain are fairly simple because they need to fit inside the smart contract paradigm. We take that away, and now we're looking at much larger scale projects that can be done in all of the different verticals that we're addressing right now. Challenge for us: stay focused on getting the blockchain built, not on all the other opportunities that exist out there, but empowering people to be able to be partnered with us to do that and go to market fast. That's our key.
Definitely, well said. And you mentioned there the data grid, and there is the Prasaga DataGrid Token that I was looking into. Can you talk about, where that's at, how it's being built out, what is the main functionality within Prasaga's protocol, and does it create a sustainable ecosystem?
Yeah, so I mean, with any layer one blockchain, and it's kind of funny, we're about 4 years past when this was the paradigm, but we're using an ERC20 token in order to generate the needed resources we need to build out the full system. We're doing that in a DeFi model on pairs that will obviously at some point we'll also have centralized exchanges, but the decentralized exchanges will allow us to get, we're giving 9.75% APR on our token, so that you've got the incentivization to stay and work with us on it. The other piece is to be building out other components of what we're doing and giving visibility to those partners as we come. I think that's probably the most important piece. Just as most did, whether it was EOS with 4 billion raised or smaller amounts, we're going to be one-to-one exchangeable for the actual native token when mainnet goes live. One thing I do want to mention, and I think this is it's politically incorrect, but I think it's an important piece to talk about, and that's that we're not building this token for speculation. That's not our goal. Now, will there be speculation? Absolutely. But we built it with an algorithm that is building our own digital GDP. And when you read our white paper, you'll understand that we're pegging it against an internal rate of return that you're needing to have based on the economy of the token itself. And that means that over time, this is going to become a much more stabilized currency to be able to do exchange with. And there'll be a moment over the next 10 years where it'll go from being a token to be invested in, or to being a currency to actually invest with. And that's an important distinction. And we haven't seen anybody else actually try and look at the fundamental instability of a token, making it an inappropriate way to make it a exchange of value rather than a store of value. And that's one of the things that we think is probably, especially on our monetary policy component, one of the most innovative that we've looked at.
Definitely. I'm glad that you mentioned that, Jay. And you also mentioned that you will be switching to the native token on the Prasaga protocol when the mainnet goes live. Maybe you can give a glimpse into, what are the major milestones next, and is there a time for the mainnet, or what do you need to do to get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, dates are always so great when you're talking about software. I've been doing this for 30 years. And I came out of the video game space where, you ship when it's fun, right? And so how do you hit fun? Actually, David Beaverman has been 40 years building software. He's pretty darn good about picking timelines. We're looking at testnet within 12 months and mainnet. Our goal is within 18 months. There are some things that need to happen on testnet, like how we engage with the miners and how we actually bring partners to market and make sure that they're part of our launch. That, I get, especially being the marketing guy trying to put together the Xbox Live lineup of exclusives, or at least of partners, know how much energy that's going to take. So I think that those are really good rules of thumb. I think that this next round is to really be able to get that marketplace up that we talked about with the royalty architecture in place. That'll be important. In addition to that, showcasing some of the things that we're going to be able to do differently, which we're already going to be launching in 1st of April here, an entire demo that'll give you a graphical user interface in front of what we're doing at the command line over on Hyperledger right now. So you're going to be able to see, actually how we're doing this and begin to understand conceptually how this is a different paradigm than smart contracts and how you can work with us on that.
That's great, Jay, and I'm looking forward to following along. And for the viewers that also want to learn more about Prasaga, follow along, and get involved in the communities early on here, what is the best way for them to get involved?
Yeah, I think, our Telegram channel is crucial. It's at Prasaga Official. Our website at Prasaga.com. We're also doing all of our token offering on our pre-sale through something called dgblabs.io. We're an Estonian corporation because we live here in the States, so it's important that all of that gets done under the best regulatory framework that's possible on the planet. That's something that we've done a lot of work to make sure that we stay as in compliance as possible as that that framework gets further developed. So yeah, dgblabs.io is where you'll see the pre-sale information.
Great. Well, I will leave the Telegram website, pre-sale information, all of that in the description box below for the viewers. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. All the best with Prasaga moving forward. It sounds like you have some great fundamentals so far. I'm looking forward to following along with the project, and let's follow up in the near future.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Ashton.